The mess hall of the Galactic Defense Station buzzed with the usual evening chatter. Species from across the galaxy sat in their designated groups, sharing meals and war stories. The Krillian warriors flexed their forearms while describing their latest conquests. The insectoid Vex clicked their mandibles in approval of tactical discussions. Even the peaceful Altarian diplomats engaged in animated debates about trade routes and political alliances. In the corner, alone at a small table, sat Marcus Chen. The human picked at his standard-issue protein ration, occasionally glancing up at the holoscreen displaying casualty reports from the ongoing war against the Void Syndicate. His plain gray uniform bore no decorations, no rank insignia beyond the basic conscript stripes. To anyone watching, he appeared to be just another unremarkable human soldier among the thousands stationed on the massive defense platform. "Look at him," sneered Commander Vextar, his black carapace gleaming under the artificial lights. "The humans send us their weakest again. No muscle, no claws, no natural weapons. What use could such a soft creature possibly serve in real combat?" His squad of Vex warriors clicked in agreement, their compound eyes reflecting amusement. The sound carried across the mess hall, drawing attention from other tables. Several species turned to observe the human, some with curiosity, others with barely concealed disdain. Captain Thorak of the Krillian Defense Corps slammed his massive fist on his table, causing the metal to dent. "At least the other humans show some spirit. This one just sits there like a broken droid." "I've seen dead Altarians with more presence." The insult drew laughter from the surrounding tables. Even some of the normally reserved crystalline beings allowed their forms to shimmer with what passed for humor among their species. Marcus continued eating, seemingly oblivious to the mockery surrounding him. Lieutenant Zara, a Krillian female with intricate scarring across her blue skin, leaned forward. "I heard this one scored dead last in combat simulations. The instructors wanted to send him home, but apparently Earth is so desperate for warm bodies they're keeping everyone." "Warm body is right," chuckled Commander Vextar. "That's about all humans are good for. Cannon fodder and manual labor. At least this one knows his place and keeps quiet." The conversation continued for several more minutes, with various species contributing their own observations about human inadequacy. Marcus finished his meal, disposed of his tray, and walked quietly toward the exit. As he passed the Vex commander's table, Vextar extended one of his limbs, causing Marcus to stumble slightly. "Watch where you're walking, meat," the commander hissed. Marcus steadied himself, looked directly at Vextar for a brief moment, then continued walking without saying a word. The silence from the human seemed to amuse the alien warriors even more. "Did you see that?" Thorak roared with laughter. "Not even the courage to respond to a direct challenge. Earth must be truly desperate to send us such cowards." What none of them noticed was the brief flicker in Marcus's dark eyes during that moment of eye contact. It wasn't fear or embarrassment that had kept him silent. It was calculation. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Admiral Kethvar, the station's Altarian commander, called an emergency assembly. The massive amphitheater filled with thousands of soldiers from dozens of species, all buzzing with speculation about the sudden gathering. Admiral Kethvar's crystalline form projected calm authority as he addressed the crowd. "Warriors of the Galactic Defense Corps, we have received critical intelligence about the Void Syndicate's next move. They are planning a massive assault on the Terran colonies in the Outer Rim. Intelligence suggests they have developed new weapons specifically designed to counter our traditional defense strategies." A murmur ran through the assembled troops. The Terran colonies housed over 50 billion humans, making them one of the most populous regions in the galaxy. An attack there would be catastrophic. "Therefore," the Admiral continued, "High Command has decided to implement Operation Silent Strike. We will deploy small, specialized teams to infiltrate syndicate positions and gather intelligence on their new weapons. Each team will consist of 5 members from different species, chosen for their unique abilities. The announcement sent excitement through most of the audience. Elite missions meant glory, recognition, and the chance to prove oneself against the galaxy's most dangerous enemies. Species began eyeing each other, speculating about team compositions and hoping for selection. Team assignments will be posted within the hour. Prepare for immediate deployment. The fate of 50 billion lives may depend on our success. As the assembly dispersed, conversations erupted about who might be chosen. The Krillians boasted about their combat prowess. The Vex discussed their superior tactical analysis capabilities. The crystalline beings spoke of their ability to interface directly with technology. Marcus walked quietly through the corridors back to his quarters, passing groups of excited soldiers making predictions about the mission teams. None of them included him in their speculation. Why would they? He was just another unremarkable human conscript with poor simulation scores and no apparent special abilities. An hour later, the team assignments appeared on the main communication boards throughout the station. Soldiers crowded around, searching for their names and celebrating or commiserating based on their assignments. Team 7's roster caused considerable confusion. Commander Vexitar, Tactical Analysis, Captain Thorak, Heavy Combat, Lieutenant Zara, Reconnaissance, Specialist Nixhai, Technology Interface, Private Marcus Chen. "This has to be a mistake," Vexitar muttered, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "Why would they assign a useless human to an elite infiltration team?" Thorak's massive frame shook with indignation. "Someone in high command has lost their mind. That weak creature will get us all killed." Lieutenant Zara studied the assignment with tactical precision. "Perhaps they need a human for some specific purpose. Maybe the Syndicate has defenses that require human biometrics to bypass." Specialist Nixhai, a tall, ethereal, crystalline being, pulsed with uncertain light patterns. "The assignment parameters are unusual. There must be information we are not being provided." None of them thought to ask Marcus himself. The human had read the assignment, nodded slightly, and returned to his quarters to prepare his gear. His reaction was so subdued that most observers assumed he was either in shock or simply didn't understand the significance of being chosen for such an important mission. The briefing room was tense with unspoken frustration when Team 7 assembled 2 hours later. Commander Vexitar had clearly been voicing his complaints to anyone who would listen based on the sympathetic looks from other Vex officers. Thorak sat with his arms crossed, his scarred blue skin darker than usual with suppressed anger. Lieutenant Zara maintained professional composure, but her tactical mind was clearly troubled by the team composition. Specialist Nixhai's crystalline form flickered between different hues, indicating internal processing of multiple scenarios. Marcus sat quietly in his assigned chair, checking his standard issue equipment with methodical precision. His gear was unremarkable: basic armor, standard energy rifle, minimal survival equipment, nothing that would indicate special capabilities or hidden purposes. "Team 7, announced Colonel Marsh, a stern-faced human intelligence officer. "Your mission is to infiltrate the Syndicate research facility on Kepler 442c and gather intelligence on their new weapon systems. The facility is heavily defended and operates under strict security protocols." He activated a holographic display showing the target facility, a massive complex built into the side of a mountain, bristling with defensive turrets and energy barriers. The facility houses approximately 3,000 Syndicate personnel, including their best scientists and security forces. Traditional assault would be suicide. Stealth and precision are essential. Vexitar leaned forward, his tactical mind engaging despite his frustration with the team composition. "What do we know about their security systems?" "Multiple layers," Colonel Marsh replied. energy barriers that can detect most known life forms, automated defense systems, and roving patrols of their elite guard units. The Syndicate has also deployed new scanner technology that can detect conventional cloaking devices. How exactly are we supposed to infiltrate such a facility? Thorak demanded. Even with our combined abilities, getting past those defenses seems impossible. Colonel Marsh's eyes briefly flicked toward Marcus before returning to the group. That's where your human team member becomes essential. Recent intelligence suggests that humans possess certain unique characteristics that make them invisible to Syndicate scanning technology. This revelation caused a stir among the team members. They all turned to look at Marcus with new interest, though still with considerable skepticism. "What kind of characteristics?" Lieutenant Zara asked. "Classified," was the colonel's only response. "What you need to know is that Private Chen will be taking point on infiltration. The rest of you will provide support and handle specific mission objectives once inside." The silence that followed was heavy with disbelief. The idea that their success depended on the quiet human they had all dismissed as useless was difficult to process. "Sir," Vextar began carefully, "with all due respect, Private Chen scored last in all combat simulations. His tactical knowledge appears minimal, and he has shown no evidence of any special abilities. Are we certain he is capable of leading an infiltration mission?" Colonel Marsh's expression remained neutral. "Private Chen's simulation scores are irrelevant to this mission. He has other qualifications that make him uniquely suited for this operation." "What qualifications?" Thorak pressed. "We have a right to know what we're working with." "You have a right to know what you need to know," the colonel replied firmly. "And what you need to know is that this mission has the highest possible priority. Failure could result in the deaths of 50 billion humans and the collapse of our defensive line against the Syndicate." The weight of that responsibility settled over the team. Despite their doubts about Marcus, none of them were willing to risk such catastrophic consequences based on their personal prejudices. "Your transport leaves in 6 hours," Colonel Marsh continued. "Use that time to study the facility schematics and coordinate your approach. Once you're on the ground, communication with command will be impossible due to Syndicate jamming technology. You'll be on your own." As the briefing concluded and team members began filing out, Colonel Marsh called Marcus aside. "Private Chen, a word." The others glanced back curiously, but continued out of the room. When they were alone, the colonel's demeanor changed slightly. "Are you ready for this?" he asked quietly. Marcus nodded. "Yes, sir. It's time." "The others don't know, do they?" "No, sir. I've maintained cover protocols as instructed." Colonel Marsh studied the young man's face carefully. 5 years is a long time to maintain such deep cover. Are you certain you can access your training when needed?" "The conditioning is still intact, sir. When the mission parameters are met, I'll remember everything." "Good. The galaxy is counting on you, son. Don't let us down." "I won't, sir." As Marcus left the briefing room, he passed his teammates, who were huddled in discussion near the corridor entrance. Their conversation stopped abruptly when they saw him, and he could feel their eyes following him as he walked away. "There's something wrong here," Vextar muttered once Marcus was out of earshot. "That human is hiding something." "Obviously," agreed Thorak. "But what? He seems completely ordinary, weak, quiet, unremarkable in every way." Lieutenant Zara's tactical mind was working overtime. Perhaps that's the point. Maybe being unremarkable is his qualification. Specialist Nixhai pulsed with thoughtful patterns. The colonel's behavior suggested familiarity with the human. There may be history between them that we are not aware of. "History or not," Vextar concluded, "we're stuck with him. We'll just have to work around his limitations and hope whatever special quality he supposedly possesses actually exists." The next few hours passed in preparation and study. Each team member reviewed the mission parameters according to their specialties. Vexitar analyzed defensive patterns and identified potential weaknesses in the facility's security arrangements. Thorak studied the layout to plan combat scenarios if stealth failed. Lieutenant Zara mapped escape routes and contingency plans. Specialist Nixhai examined the technical specifications of the equipment they would need to bypass. Marcus spent his time in the ship's database, quietly reviewing files that his teammates assumed were basic facility schematics. In reality, he was accessing encrypted data that would only unlock when specific biometric parameters were met. As he read, fragments of memory began stirring in the depths of his mind, like echoes of dreams he had forgotten upon waking. The transport ship that would carry them to Kepler 442c was a sleek stealth vessel designed for covert operations. As they boarded, each team member carried their specialized equipment and personal weapons. Marcus's gear remained notably basic compared to his teammates' advanced arsenals. "Last chance to reconsider," Thorak muttered as they strapped in for departure. "If this human gets us killed, I'm going to be very unhappy." "If we're dead, your happiness level will be irrelevant," Zara pointed out pragmatically. As the ship pulled away from the defense station and jumped into hyperspace, none of them noticed Marcus's eyes gradually changing. The warm brown was slowly being replaced by something colder, more focused. Deep in his mind, locks that had been in place for years were beginning to turn. The quiet human they knew was starting to remember who he really was, and the galaxy was about to discover why Earth's most dangerous operatives were never the ones you noticed. The stealth ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to Syndicate sensors. Through the viewports, the team could see their destination, a barren world of red rock and thin atmosphere, perfect for hiding secret research facilities. "Approach vector confirmed," announced the ship's pilot, a grizzled veteran from the Altarian Space Corps. "We'll have you on the ground in 30 minutes, but I can't wait around. Pickup is scheduled for exactly 72 hours from now at coordinates you'll receive once planetside." Commander Vexitar studied the tactical display with his compound eyes, analyzing the facility's defensive grid. "Interesting. The energy barriers pulse in a regular pattern, but there are gaps we might exploit." Captain Thorak checked his weapons for the 5th time since boarding. "What's our entry strategy? Do we wait for a patrol gap, or does our mysterious human have some magical way past their defenses?" All eyes turned to Marcus, who was sitting quietly in his harness, staring out at the approaching planet. For the past hour of their journey, his teammates had noticed subtle changes in his demeanor. The nervous fidgeting was gone. His posture had become more alert, more controlled. Even his breathing seemed different. "Private Chen," Lieutenant Zara prompted. "The commander asked about entry strategy." Marcus turned to face them, and several team members immediately noticed the change in his eyes. The warm brown had become steel gray, and there was an intensity there that hadn't existed before. "We go in through the main entrance," Marcus said quietly. The statement was so unexpected that none of them responded immediately. "The main entrance?" Vexitar finally managed. "That's not infiltration, that's suicide. The defensive grid alone would vaporize us before we got within a kilometer." "Not if they can't detect us," Marcus replied calmly. "But you heard the briefing," Thorak protested. "Their scanners can detect all known life forms. Even with cloaking technology, we'd be spotted instantly." Marcus was quiet for a moment, and something strange began happening to his face. The soft, unremarkable features that had made him so forgettable started to subtly shift. His jaw became more defined, his eyes sharper, his entire presence more commanding. "Their scanners detect all known life forms," he agreed. "But they weren't designed to detect something that doesn't register as alive." Specialist Nixhai's crystalline form flickered with confusion patterns. "Explain this paradox." You are clearly a living being. Marcus looked directly at each of them in turn, and they all felt an inexplicable chill. 5 years ago, I died. The silence that followed was absolute, except for the hum of the ship's engines. "What do you mean you died?" Zara demanded. "Operation Ghost Protocol," Marcus continued, his voice taking on a mechanical quality. "Earth's most classified military program. We take volunteers who are already presumed dead and enhance them beyond standard human limitations. The process is extensive." As he spoke, more changes became apparent. His skin had taken on an almost translucent quality, and his movements had become perfectly fluid, as if he were moving through water instead of air. "Enhanced how?" Vextar asked, his tactical mind struggling to process this new information. "Physical capabilities increased by a factor of 10. Sensory perception expanded beyond normal human ranges. Pain receptors dulled to 20% of baseline. Most importantly, biological signatures altered to register as non-living matter on most scanning systems." Thorak leaned forward, his massive frame suddenly seeming less imposing. "You're saying you're some kind of undead super soldier?" "Not undead," Marcus corrected. "Redesigned. My heart still beats, but at a rate so slow most medical scanners read it as mechanical. My body temperature has been lowered to just above ambient. My brain chemistry has been altered to eliminate fear responses and enhance tactical processing." The revelation hit each team member differently. Vextar's compound eyes processed the tactical implications at lightning speed. Thorak struggled with the concept of a human who might actually be more dangerous than he was. Zara's reconnaissance training kicked in as she studied Marcus with new understanding. Nixhi's crystalline form pulsed with rapid calculations. "The simulation scores," Zara realized. "You were holding back." "The mission required deep cover," Marcus confirmed. "For 5 years, I've lived as Private Marcus Chen, unremarkable conscript. The conditioning suppressed my enhanced capabilities and training until mission parameters were met." "And now?" Vexitar asked. Marcus stood up, and the movement was so smooth and controlled that it seemed almost supernatural. "Now I remember who I am." The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Insertion point in 5 minutes. Better get ready for drop." As they prepared their equipment for planetfall, the team found themselves stealing glances at Marcus. The transformation was remarkable. The shy, clumsy human who had been mocked in the mess hall was gone, replaced by something that moved like liquid death and spoke with the calm certainty of a predator. "How many others are there like you?" Nixhi asked. "Classified," Marcus replied. "But enough." The ship touched down in a rocky canyon 5 kilometers from the Syndicate facility. As they disembarked, each team member felt the thin atmosphere bite at their lungs despite their breathing apparatus. The landscape was harsh and unforgiving, all jagged red stone and deep shadows. "Remember," the pilot called as they unloaded, 72 hours maximum. If you're not at the pickup coordinates, I leave without you." Marcus shouldered his pack and looked toward the facility, barely visible as a dark smudge against the mountainside in the distance. "We'll be there." Something in the way he said it made the pilot believe him. The journey to the facility took 3 hours across treacherous terrain. Marcus moved through the rocky landscape like he had been born to it, finding paths that seemed impossible and leading the team around obstacles that would have cost them hours to navigate. His teammates, all experienced warriors in their own right, found themselves struggling to keep up. "How does he know where to go?" Thorak panted as they paused to rest in the shadow of a massive boulder. "Enhanced sensory perception," Zara observed. "He can probably smell the patrol routes and hear the energy barriers cycling from here." As if to prove her point, Marcus held up a hand for silence. The others froze, straining their own senses but detecting nothing. After a full minute, they heard it, the distant whine of a Syndicate patrol craft passing overhead. It was so faint that without Marcus's warning, they never would have noticed it. Patrol pattern suggests a security sweep every 40 minutes, Marcus said quietly. We have 37 minutes before the next pass. They moved out, and this time his teammates paid closer attention to how Marcus operated. He didn't just navigate the terrain, he read it like a tactical display. Every shadow, every sound, every shift in air pressure provided him with information that he processed and acted upon instantly. When they finally reached the perimeter of the facility, the full scope of their challenge became clear. The Syndicate complex was built into the mountainside like a fortress, with multiple layers of energy barriers, automated turrets, and roving patrols. Getting inside seemed impossible. Energy barriers are operating on a rotating frequency, Vextar observed through his scope. Even if we could get past one layer, there are 3 more behind it. Guard posts here, here, and here, Zara added, marking positions on her tactical display, plus automated sentries every 50 meters. The technology interface points are heavily shielded, Nixhai noted. Even if I could access them, it would take considerable time to bypass their security protocols. Marcus studied the facility with eyes that seemed to catalog every detail simultaneously. We don't bypass anything. We walk through the front door. You keep saying that, Thorak growled, but you haven't explained how. Instead of answering, Marcus began removing his equipment. First the armor, then his weapons, then everything except his basic clothing. His teammates watched in confusion as he seemed to deliberately make himself more vulnerable. "What are you doing?" Vexitar demanded. "Becoming invisible," Marcus replied calmly. As they watched, the changes that had begun on the ship continued. His skin became almost gray, taking on the exact color and texture of the surrounding stone. His breathing slowed until it was barely perceptible. Even his smell seemed to disappear, as if his body had simply stopped producing any detectable chemical signatures. "Biochemical camouflage," he explained in a voice that was barely a whisper. "Another enhancement. I can mimic the electromagnetic and chemical properties of my environment for limited periods." The transformation was so complete that when Marcus pressed himself against a nearby rock face, he virtually disappeared. Only the slight movement of his lips when he spoke revealed his position. "I'll go in first and disable the security systems from the inside. Give me 30 minutes, then approach the main entrance. The barriers will be down." "And if something goes wrong?" Zara asked. Marcus's gray eyes met hers, and she saw something in them that made her shiver. "Nothing will go wrong." Without another word, he began moving toward the facility. His teammates watched through their scopes as he approached the first energy barrier. To their amazement, the deadly field that could vaporize a charging Krillian warrior didn't even flicker as Marcus passed through it. "Impossible," Vexitar muttered. "Those barriers detect molecular motion. How can he pass through without triggering them?" "Because he's not showing up as alive," Nixhai realized. "The barriers are designed to stop living beings, to their sensors. He's just another piece of the landscape." They watched as Marcus moved through all 4 barrier layers without triggering a single alarm. He approached the main entrance, a massive armored door guarded by 2 heavily armed Syndicate soldiers. The guards, reptilian beings with enhanced combat modifications, stood alertly at their posts. Marcus walked right past them. The guards never even turned their heads. To them, nothing had happened. Their sensors detected no life signs, no movement, no threat. As far as their enhanced senses were concerned, they were still alone. "This is impossible," Thorak breathed. "He's walking through their entire security grid like it doesn't exist." For the next 20 minutes, they watched through their scopes as Marcus systematically infiltrated the most secure facility in Syndicate space. He moved through patrol routes without being detected, passed by guard posts without triggering alerts, and accessed security stations without setting off alarms. Finally, after exactly 28 minutes, The energy barriers flickered and went down. The automated turrets powered down. The roving patrols received orders to return to base. In less than half an hour, Marcus had single-handedly neutralized one of the most sophisticated security systems in the galaxy. A communication came through on their secured channel. "Front door is open. Come on in." As they approached the facility entrance, they found Marcus waiting for them, now visible again, but somehow different. The quiet human conscript was completely gone, replaced by something that radiated controlled lethality. "Security systems are on a 30-minute loop," he informed them. "I've convinced their central computer that everything is normal. We have that long before anyone notices the discrepancies." "How did you convince their computer of anything?" Nixhai asked. Marcus held up his hand, and they could see that his fingertips had taken on a metallic sheen. "Direct neural interface capability. Another enhancement. I can communicate directly with most computer systems by touch." Vexitar's tactical mind was reeling. "What other enhancements do you have?" "Enough to complete the mission," was Marcus's only response. "Let's move. We have work to do." As they entered the facility, the team found themselves following someone completely different from the human they had dismissed. Marcus moved through the corridors like a ghost, anticipating threats before they appeared and neutralizing obstacles before his teammates even realized they existed. The Syndicate facility was a maze of research labs, security checkpoints, and living quarters. Getting lost would be easy, but Marcus navigated it as if he had been studying the layout for years, rather than minutes. "Lab sections are this way," he said, leading them through a series of corridors that seemed randomly chosen but somehow avoided all patrol routes and surveillance points. "How do you know where you're going?" Zara asked. "I downloaded their entire facility database while I was accessing the security systems," Marcus replied matter-of-factly. "Floor plans, personnel rosters, research schedules, everything." Thorak shook his massive head in disbelief. "You downloaded their entire database? In 5 minutes?" 3 minutes, Marcus corrected. The other 2 were spent implanting false data to cover our infiltration. They reached the research section without encountering a single guard or triggering any alarms. The laboratories they passed contained equipment and experiments that would have taken hours to properly analyze, but Marcus absorbed it all with quick glances as they moved. "Target lab is ahead," he announced, stopping at an intersection. 3 guards inside, plus 2 scientists. The weapon prototypes are in secured storage at the back of the room. "How do you know all that?" Vexitar demanded. Marcus tapped his ear, and they noticed for the first time that his hearing seemed enhanced to an almost supernatural degree. Enhanced auditory perception. I can hear their conversations, their heartbeats, even their breathing patterns. 2 guards are alert, 1 is drowsy. Both scientists are focused on their work. The storage container is magnetically sealed, but not energy shielded. He looked at each team member in turn. "I need you to wait here for exactly 3 minutes, then enter the lab. By then, the threat will be neutralized." "What threat?" Thorak asked, but Marcus was already moving. They watched as he approached the lab entrance. The door was sealed, but Marcus placed his metallic fingertips against the control panel, and it slid open silently. He stepped inside, and the door closed behind him. For 3 minutes, they heard nothing. No alarms, no sounds of combat, no indication that anything unusual was happening inside the lab. When the door finally opened again, Marcus emerged and gestured for them to follow. Inside the lab, they found 5 Syndicate personnel sitting calmly at their workstations, completely unaware that anything had happened. The guards remained at their posts, alert and ready. The scientists continued their experiments without interruption. "How are they not reacting to us?" Zara whispered. "Localized memory suppression," Marcus replied quietly. "Another enhancement. I can temporarily disrupt short-term memory formation in most species." They'll remember everything up to 5 minutes ago, but nothing after that until the effect wears off. He led them to the secured storage area at the back of the lab. The weapon prototypes were contained in a series of armored cases that would normally require specialized equipment to open. Marcus simply placed his hand on each lock, and they clicked open one by one. "Enhanced electromagnetic manipulation," he explained before anyone could ask. "I can generate targeted EM pulses to disable most electronic systems." The weapon prototypes were unlike anything they had seen before. Energy weapons that seemed to bend light around themselves, projectile systems that defied conventional physics, and defensive technologies that appeared to operate on quantum principles. "This is beyond anything the Syndicate should be capable of," Vextar observed, his compound eyes processing the implications. "That's because they didn't develop it," Marcus said, studying the weapons with enhanced perception. "This is void technology. The Syndicate has formed an alliance with something from outside our galaxy." The revelation hit them like a physical blow. The Void Syndicate had always been dangerous, but the idea that they had allied themselves with extragalactic entities changed everything. "We need to get this information back to Command immediately," HFY said, her crystalline form pulsing with urgent patterns. "Agreed," Marcus replied. "But first, we need to see what else they're working on. If they have void technology, there might be other threats we need to know about." As they prepared to explore deeper into the facility, none of them noticed the subtle change in Marcus's expression. His enhanced senses had detected something else, something that made his artificially suppressed emotions flicker with what might have been anticipation. Somewhere in this facility was someone he had been hunting for a very long time, someone whose presence here meant that this mission had just become personal. The quiet human was fully awake now, and the galaxy was about to learn why Earth's most dangerous operatives were known by another name entirely. They were called Reapers, for a reason. Deep within the Syndicate facility, Marcus led his team through corridors that seemed to pulse with alien technology. The walls themselves appeared to be alive, covered in patterns that shifted and moved like living tissue. Whatever the Syndicate had discovered, it was far beyond anything the galaxy had encountered before. "The energy readings are off the charts," Specialist HFY reported, her crystalline form flickering rapidly as she tried to process the data. "This technology operates on principles I don't recognize." Marcus paused at an intersection, his enhanced senses gathering information from multiple sources simultaneously. "Void technology isn't just advanced," he said quietly. "It's fundamentally different from anything in our reality. It doesn't follow our physical laws because it comes from somewhere that has different laws." "How do you know so much about it?" Commander Vextar demanded, his tactical mind struggling to keep up with the revelations. "Because this isn't my first encounter with void tech," Marcus replied. 5 years ago, during the Ghost Protocol operation that killed my old identity, I was part of a team investigating similar discoveries. That's when we learned the Void Syndicate wasn't just a criminal organization. He gestured down the corridor toward a section that seemed to writhe with organic movement. "They're the advanced scouts for something much worse. The void entities that created this technology are testing our galaxy's defenses, preparing for a full invasion." Captain Thorax's massive frame tensed with barely controlled aggression. "And you've been hunting them for 5 years?" "Among other things," Marcus confirmed. "The Ghost Protocol wasn't just about creating enhanced soldiers. It was about creating weapons specifically designed to fight an enemy that exists partially outside our reality." As they moved deeper into the facility, the alien influence became more pronounced. The corridors began to curve in ways that hurt to look at, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with energy that made their skin crawl. "I'm detecting massive power signatures ahead," Lieutenant Zara reported, checking her reconnaissance equipment. "Whatever they're doing in the central labs, it's requiring enormous amounts of energy." Marcus stopped suddenly, his head tilted as if listening to something the others couldn't hear. His enhanced senses had picked up something that made his artificially controlled emotions spike with what could only be described as hatred. "He's here," Marcus said quietly. "Who's here?" Vexitar asked. "Dr. Caney, the human scientist who originally made contact with the void entities, the one responsible for everything that's happened since." The name meant nothing to his teammates, but the way Marcus said it made them all take notice. For the first time since his transformation had begun, genuine emotion was breaking through his enhanced conditioning. "This mission just became personal," Marcus continued, and something in his voice made even the massive Krillian warrior take a step back. They approached the central laboratory complex through service corridors that Marcus somehow knew existed, despite never having been in the facility before. His enhanced capabilities were clearly far beyond what he had initially revealed, allowing him to navigate the alien-influenced architecture as if it were familiar territory. "How do you know this place so well?" Zara asked. "Part of the Ghost Protocol enhancement includes spatial memory implants," Marcus explained. "I can download and process architectural data at accelerated rates, then navigate it as if I had been there for years." They reached an observation point overlooking the main laboratory, and what they saw made them all freeze in shock. The chamber was enormous, easily the size of a small city, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above. In the center stood a structure that defied description. Part machine, part organic growth, part something that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the eye could process. Surrounding the central structure were hundreds of syndicate scientists and technicians, but they moved in patterns that seemed unnatural, almost choreographed. Their actions were too coordinated, too precise, as if they were being controlled by something else. "They're not acting independently," Nixhai observed, her advanced analytical capabilities processing the scene. "Their movements are being directed by an external intelligence." "The void entities don't just use technology," Marcus said grimly. "They influence living minds directly. Everyone down there is essentially a puppet." At the center of the activity, directing the work with calm authority, stood a human figure that Marcus's enhanced vision immediately identified. Dr. Caney looked exactly as he had 5 years ago, which should have been impossible given the amount of time that had passed. "Void exposure halts aging," Marcus explained when Vexitar commented on this observation. "Among other changes, Caney stopped being fully human years ago." As they watched, the central structure began to pulse with energy that made reality itself seem to bend and twist around it. The very air in the chamber took on a quality that was difficult to describe, as if it were becoming more and less real at the same time. "What is that thing?" Thorak asked, his warrior instinct screaming warnings about the wrongness of what they were observing. "A dimensional anchor," Marcus replied. "They're trying to open a permanent gateway between our galaxy and the Void Realm. If they succeed, the invasion won't be gradual anymore. It'll be instantaneous and overwhelming." The implications of this hit each team member differently, but the result was the same. Absolute determination to stop whatever was happening, regardless of the cost. "We need to destroy that device," Vexitar said, his compound eyes already analyzing potential attack vectors. "Conventional weapons won't work," Marcus warned. "Void technology is partially phased out of our reality. You can't destroy something that doesn't entirely exist in our dimension." "Then how do we stop it?" Zara demanded. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice had taken on a quality that made his teammates realize they were seeing only the beginning of what he truly was. "We don't destroy the device. We destroy the man controlling it, and we do it in a way that sends a message to the void entities about what happens when they threaten humanity." He began moving toward the laboratory entrance, and his teammates found themselves following despite not fully understanding what he intended to do. "What's the plan?" Thorak asked. You four secure the laboratory perimeter and make sure no one interferes, Marcus replied. I'm going to have a conversation with an old friend. The way he said conversation made it clear that violence was not just possible, but inevitable. They reached the laboratory entrance, which was guarded by a dozen syndicate soldiers equipped with void-enhanced weapons. Marcus studied them for a moment, then turned to his team. Remember, everyone in there is being controlled. They're not responsible for their actions. Try to incapacitate rather than kill when possible. What about Dr. Kane? Vexitar asked. Marcus's artificially controlled emotions flickered again, and for a moment his teammates saw something that made them glad they weren't his enemies. Kaney made his choices freely. He's not being controlled, he's collaborating. Without another word, Marcus walked toward the guarded entrance. The syndicate soldiers immediately raised their weapons, but something strange happened. As Marcus approached, their enhanced sensors began registering contradictory information. Their targeting systems couldn't lock onto him. Their motion detectors showed empty space, and their life sign scanners detected nothing. Ghost protocol enhancement, Marcus explained quietly as the confused guards looked right through him. I can phase partially out of reality for brief periods. Their void-enhanced sensors can't track something that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. He walked past the guards as if they weren't there, then gestured for his team to follow. The soldiers never even noticed them entering the laboratory. Inside, the alien wrongness was overwhelming. The air itself seemed to whisper with voices from somewhere else, and the lighting came from sources that cast shadows in impossible directions. The syndicate personnel moved through their choreographed patterns, their eyes reflecting light that came from somewhere other than the laboratory's illumination. Marcus led his team to strategic positions around the chamber's perimeter, while he approached the central platform where Dr. Kaney was directing the dimensional anchor's operation. As he got closer, the human scientist looked up from his work, and his face showed no surprise at seeing Marcus. Agent Chen, Kaney said calmly. Or do you prefer Reaper 7? I've been wondering when you would find me. Dr. Kaney, Marcus replied, his voice carrying undertones that seemed to resonate with frequencies beyond normal human hearing. You're looking well for a dead man. Death is a provincial concept, Kaney responded. The void entities have shown me that existence operates on scales and principles far beyond what our species imagined. They're offering us evolution, Chen, a chance to become something more than we are. They're offering us extinction, Marcus corrected, and you're helping them do it. Kaney gestured toward the dimensional anchor, which was pulsing faster now, its energy readings climbing toward dangerous levels. This device will open a permanent gateway between realities. Humanity will finally have access to technology and knowledge beyond our wildest dreams. Humanity will be conquered by entities that view us as insects, Marcus replied. And you know it. Perhaps. But insects can evolve into something magnificent when given the proper guidance. The conversation was interrupted as the dimensional anchor reached a critical threshold. The air in the laboratory began to tear, revealing glimpses of something beyond that hurt to look at directly. Through the growing rifts, shapes moved that followed no earthly logic, and sounds emerged that spoke to parts of the mind that were meant to remain hidden. It's too late to stop it now, Kaney said with satisfaction. The gateway is opening, and soon the first void entities will enter our galaxy. They're quite eager to meet humanity properly. Marcus looked up at the dimensional anchor, his enhanced senses analyzing its operation and identifying its critical systems. You're right. It is too late to stop it conventionally. Without warning, he moved. The speed was inhuman, faster than even his enhanced teammates could follow. In a single fluid motion, he covered the distance between himself and Dr. Kane, but instead of attacking the scientist, he placed his hand directly on the dimensional anchor itself. The contact sent energy surging through Marcus's body that would have killed any normal being instantly. His Ghost Protocol enhancements, however, had been specifically designed for exactly this situation. Instead of being destroyed by the void energy, he began to absorb it, channeling it through his altered physiology and redirecting it back into the device. "What are you doing?" Caney demanded, backing away as Marcus's body began to glow with alien light. "Something that should have been done 5 years ago," Marcus replied, his voice now carrying harmonics that seemed to come from multiple dimensions simultaneously. The dimensional anchor began to pulse erratically as Marcus fed its own energy back into it in patterns it wasn't designed to handle. The carefully controlled process of opening a gateway between realities became chaotic and unpredictable. Through the rifts in space, the waiting void entities suddenly found themselves facing something they hadn't expected: a human who could manipulate their own technology against them. The sounds emerging from beyond the gateway changed from anticipation to something that might have been alarm. "The Reapers weren't just enhanced to fight your allies," Marcus said, addressing the entities beyond the gateway directly. "We were enhanced to send you a message about what happens when you threaten our species." He channeled more energy through his body, pushing the dimensional anchor far beyond its design limits. The device began to collapse in on itself, its exotic matter components destabilizing under forces they couldn't contain. "You cannot stop evolution itself," Caney shouted over the increasing noise. "The void entities will find other ways to reach our galaxy." "Maybe," Marcus agreed, his body now blazing with energy that was tearing holes in reality around him. "But they'll know that humanity doesn't surrender, and they'll know that we have weapons specifically designed to hurt them." The dimensional anchor reached critical failure, and the laboratory filled with energy that existed beyond the normal electromagnetic spectrum. Marcus's teammates found themselves shielding their eyes from light that seemed to shine from inside their own minds. When the energy finally dissipated, they found Marcus standing in the center of a crater where the dimensional anchor had been. The rifts in reality had sealed, and the alien wrongness that had permeated the laboratory was gone. Dr. Caney lay motionless nearby, his body aged decades in seconds as his artificial connection to the void entities was severed. Marcus himself looked unchanged, except for his eyes, which now held depths that seemed to reflect stars from another universe. "Is it over?" Zara asked. "This part is," Marcus replied. "But the void entities know about us now. They know that humanity has weapons that can threaten them. That will make them more cautious, but also more dangerous." He looked around the laboratory at the syndicate personnel, who were now moving normally again, their minds freed from alien influence. Most of them seemed confused and disoriented, with no memory of what they had been doing. "We need to get out of here," Marcus continued. "This facility will be discovered soon, and we need to be long gone before reinforcements arrive." As they made their way back through the facility toward their extraction point, his teammates found themselves looking at Marcus with new understanding. The quiet human conscript who had been mocked in the mess hall was completely gone, replaced by something that operated on levels they were only beginning to comprehend. "How many more of you are there?" Vextar asked as they navigated the corridors. "Enough," was Marcus's only response. "The Ghost Protocol created exactly as many Reapers as humanity needed to protect itself from threats that conventional forces couldn't handle. And you've been pretending to be a normal conscript for 5 years? Deep cover operations require total commitment. My conditioning suppressed all memories and abilities until specific mission parameters were met. For 5 years, I genuinely believed I was just Marcus Chen, failed recruit." They reached the facility perimeter and began the journey back to their extraction point. The landscape looked the same, but somehow less threatening now. Marcus moved through it with the same supernatural grace, but his teammates noticed that he was different now, more present, more real. "What happens to Marcus Chen now?" Thorak asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment as they climbed through the rocky terrain. Marcus Chen was a cover identity. He never really existed. But the person who lived that identity for 5 years, maybe he can find a way to exist alongside what I really am. When they reached the extraction coordinates, their pilot was waiting exactly as scheduled. As they boarded the stealth ship and lifted off from the barren planet, Marcus took one last look at the Syndicate facility through the viewports. "Mission accomplished?" the pilot asked. "Phase 1 accomplished," Marcus corrected. "Now the real work begins." As the ship jumped into hyperspace, carrying them back toward the Galactic Defense Station, Marcus's teammates found themselves processing everything they had witnessed. The quiet human they had dismissed and mocked had turned out to be one of the galaxy's most dangerous weapons, specifically designed to fight threats from beyond reality itself. When they arrived back at the station, the debriefing took place in the highest security chambers, with only the most senior commanders present. Marcus's report was classified at levels that most of the military didn't even know existed, but word still spread, as it always does in military organizations. Stories began circulating about Team 7's mission, about the quiet human who had single-handedly infiltrated an impossible facility and destroyed technology that threatened the entire galaxy. In the mess hall, where Marcus had once sat alone and ignored, soldiers from dozens of species now spoke his name with respect and more than a little fear. The Krillian warriors, who had once mocked his lack of natural weapons, now understood that humanity's most dangerous individuals were never the ones who looked dangerous. Commander Vextar, when asked about the mission, would only say, "Never underestimate the quiet ones. You never know what they're really capable of." Captain Thorak, whose opinion of human capabilities had been permanently revised, put it more simply. "The humans call their best warriors Reapers. After seeing one in action, I understand why." Marcus himself returned to his previous routine, eating alone in the mess hall and maintaining the quiet demeanor that had always defined him. But now, when other species looked at him, they saw something different. The unremarkable human conscript was gone, replaced by someone whose presence carried an weight that made even the most arrogant warriors think twice before speaking. And in the depths of space, entities from beyond the galaxy's edge took notice of humanity in ways they never had before. The quiet species that most galactic civilizations dismissed as weak and unremarkable had revealed weapons specifically designed to fight gods and monsters. The void entities would have to revise their invasion plans. Humanity, it seemed, was not the easy conquest they had anticipated. They had Reapers now, and the Reapers were watching. In his quarters that night, Marcus stood before a mirror, looking at the face that was both familiar and strange. The quiet human and the enhanced operative existed in the same body now, no longer separated by artificial conditioning. "Marcus Chen," he said to his reflection, testing the name. It felt different now, more real somehow. Not a cover identity, but a choice about who he wanted to be. Tomorrow, there would be new missions, new threats, new battles against enemies that most of the galaxy couldn't even imagine. But tonight, he was simply Marcus, a human who had remembered what his species was capable of when properly motivated. And across the galaxy, in hidden facilities and secret laboratories, other quiet individuals began to stir as their own conditioning responded to changing parameters. The Reapers were awakening, and the universe would never be the same. The age of humanity being underestimated was over. The age of humanity being feared had begun.